All right. Hello, my name's Chris Galloway. I am your Lake County Auditor, and I want to thank Brian Massey and Lobbyists for Citizens for coming in today to just do a little filming Q&A as it relates to property valuations, border revision, and what you can do if you feel that the auditor's office has made an error on your valuation of your property. It's important to remember that under the Ohio Revised Code, every county auditor every 6 years must perform a comprehensive reappraisal of all real property in each county. In 2024, Lake County was required to complete our sexennial reappraisal of real property in Lake County. And for Lake County, that represents about 114,000 parcels. So as you can imagine, that is millions of data points combined for the entire county. And that is parcel size, numbers of buildings, types of parcels, types of buildings. It goes on and on. Condition, those types of factors that all go into data on each individual piece of property, what we call a property record card. So every 6 years we have to reevaluate all the property in the county, and that requires manually inputting millions of data points. And so that comes back to the question of, you are a homeowner or you own commercial property, and you feel as though the auditor has erred in estimating the value of your property or your home. What can you do? Well, there is a statutorily required process that allows you as a homeowner, as a taxpayer, allows you to file a complaint based on the work that my office has done. Now keep in mind, our job as county auditor and my staff in the real estate and appraisal departments, our job in terms of engaging in the mass appraisal that we are legally required to do is to get it right. We want to be as accurate as possible. But always remember that in mass appraisal, it's not like an appraisal, like when someone comes to your home for a refinance or a purchase of your home, and they go through and they take photos and they have a very detailed look at every element of your house. We don't access the inside of your house. We are looking at exterior information that's readily available through the digital tools that we possess, as well as sales and market data. And based on that, we adjust values based on neighborhoods. And so mass appraisal is very different than fee appraisal. And I think in doing so, that does allow for a little bit extra room for incorrect analysis. We do our best. Our job is to get it right and be as accurate as possible. But sometimes we don't have all the information. So if you think your home is of a different value and you would like to file a complaint, how do you go about that? Well, the Board of Revision each year accepts complaints between January 1st and March 31st, where you can file paperwork with my office to the Board of Revision, and it allows you to appeal the value of your property. And that's important because that is the avenue for taxpayers to be able to say to the government, hey, I think you got it wrong. And listen, how often do we get to do that? And my goal is to make sure we get it right. So if you think we're wrong, help us get it right. Go ahead and file with my office. There is paperwork in my office at the auditor's office at 105 Main Street, right here in Painesville, Ohio, Suite C101. We have it readily available, brochures available that you can take. Our staff, my fantastic appraisal and real estate staff, can walk you through some of the ins and outs. We also online have an online option. You can go to the auditor's website. You can click on the option for complaint against value. Currently, we have it right at the top of the website where you can't miss it. Click on it, takes you to the page. That'll bring you to our smart file link setup, and it'll allow you to do the same thing right online from the comfort of your home, couch, kitchen, wherever you like to do it from. That's an automated process that we made available a couple of years ago to make it easier on folks in case you didn't want to travel to Painesville. All these documents that we have available online. I know that Mr. Massey has said that he'll post this document online as well. It's sort of the instructions on how to file, what information to provide us with, and what we're looking for is information that we don't have, right? We don't know if, for example, you're having an issue in your basement, whether you have an issue with your roof. Maybe we, in our data, say that you have 3 bathrooms, but you only have 2. We need this information in order to be able to accurately determine value. So if you have information, go ahead and provide anything and everything you can that helps make a case based on the value you believe your house or property is worth. Now, some people will ask me, Chris, should I go and get an appraisal? Well, that depends. Appraisals can be expensive. Certainly they can be the courts have decided that they would be the second best level of determining value. First, of course, is an actual arm's length sales transaction. Second would be a certified appraisal from an appraiser, but those could be expensive. You also may determine that you may spend a bunch of money and then it turns out, well, your value's not as low as maybe you think it is. We've had that happen. We've had folks file a complaint, get an appraisal, and then remove their complaint. That's not to say that it may not be an effective tool, but I always caution folks before they spend a lot of money to really take a look at an analysis in terms of whether or not that's something they should do. And that's up to each individual homeowner or taxpayer. I cannot give that advice one way or another. But I always tell folks, remember it costs money. And ultimately, folks, if they're worried about their appraised value, they're trying to save money on taxes. And sometimes that return on investment, that ROI, doesn't exactly equate. So just a word of caution on that. But if you've got an appraisal within the last year from a sale or a bank refinance or some other thing, or you just went ahead and got one because you wanted to know, submit that along with photos that you might have of the condition of your home, anything that helps support why you think the value may be incorrect. Throughout this whole process, I always want to remind people, this is a process that we go through because we're required to by law. It's not the county commissioners, raising your taxes. It's not the county auditor raising your taxes. In fact, taxes don't necessarily follow appraised value changes. It's important to understand it is a very complex formula, and just because somebody's value goes up, it doesn't mean their taxes will go up. Mr. Massey, I think, might even have an article on that very topic. In fact, we had about 19% of the property in Lake County, even though their values went up, their taxes went down. And that's because of the equalization process that's within the tax code and Ohio Revised Code. So, it's complex. We got to do it every 6 years with an update every 3. We have to follow the law. We follow the market. We report it back. Keep in mind, it's a complex formula. So go ahead.
I do have a question.
Yes, question.
The form that is online, if they fill that out, does someone rule on that? And if we don't like that ruling, can we then go through and ask for a formal board of review meeting?
Yeah. So when you file the form, this will undergo first staff review, and it'll determine if we have what we would determine clerical errors. Like, is there a glaring clerical error that my office can make an adjustment on by changing a specific data point that would show that, oh, there's a real error here, and therefore we can make that change from a administrative standpoint. Most don't end up falling under that and would require a hearing in front of the Board of Revision. And so that process is we would have a staff review, and then recommendations and a write-up are done by staff for all, think of like an executive summary of all the information, and that is provided to the Board of Revision to review prior to your hearing. Residents are scheduled for a hearing. We can do them in person if you would prefer to do it over the phone or even over Zoom or some teleconferencing. We can also accommodate that. So there are some folks that maybe can't get into the office physically. perfectly okay. We have the technology to have you on the phone or over Zoom, because keep in mind, a board of revision hearing will require you to be sworn in from a testimony standpoint. The board of revision will then review all the information and the questions and answers as part of your hearing. They will then make a determination, and you will receive a decision on value within a couple of weeks. You'll get a letter. If you've given us your email, you'll probably immediately get an email, and then as well a letter in the mail. If you still disagree with that decision from the board of revision, then the avenue is to appeal that decision to the state board of revision. So you can go right down to the state and appeal any decision that happens here with the state of Ohio, and then there's a higher board that can review. So this is not the end if you feel like we are still incorrect here at the county level. So
just a general question, in the revaluation of the properties, the land, people asking about land versus the building, their home. Mm-hmm. Was there a determination that the land values were undervalued in Lake County, or?
Well, that's a bit of a mixed bag. Yeah. There were some adjustments to land values. We found that land values for condominium associations were not quite accurate. Those were adjusted, as well as we found lakefront property land values were off dramatically in terms of where the marketplace was, and so folks that have a property right on the lake, waterfront, saw larger than average land value increases.
And also, one last question, just to make sure that the people understand that the 20 mil floor that applies to the school districts. That's not a county auditor issue. That is something that's determined by the state, and it is a very complex issue to understand. But I just want people to understand it's not an auditor issue. That's really a state issue, right, if we're not happy with that. So.
Yeah, so a lot of folks right now that have recently gotten paid their tax bills, they sort of have, some folks have sticker shock. And those would happen to mostly be folks that own homes in school districts that are below what we call the 20 mil floor that is dictated by House Bill 920 from the late 1970s. And basically what that does is it says any district that has real millage below 20 mils effectively is guaranteed that amount of taxation. And so when you change valuation, those millages can drop. And then what happens is you have a school district that's below it. That gap in that millage is treated like inside millage. And so the school district is entitled to that additional millage, i.e. revenue, i.e. your tax dollars. And yes, that comes without a vote. And that is all directed by state law. Our hands are tied at the local level. We have a number of school districts that were below the floor in Lake County. Perry, Kirtland, Riverside, and Willoughby Eastlake schools were below the floor, and so that allowed folks in those districts ended up with additional tax increases over, say, somebody that owns a home in Mentor. So they're seeing larger tax increases on average. But that is not a decision at the local level. It is not an auditor decision, it is not a commissioner decision, it is not directed by the school district. They are the, if you will, the winners of getting all this money, but that is because that's what's set up in state law that they are entitled to. So it is, to your point, it is driven by state statute.
Yeah, one last thing, Auditor Galloway, and that is, I want to give kudos to you. People don't know, you and I have been talking about the Budget Commission. My concern is that there really is no checks and balances against taxing authorities accumulating massive amounts of money. But I do know that you are working with other county auditors and county state reps to try to better define the role of the Budget Commission so that you can have some input as you receive tax budget from the taxing authorities to say something is wrong.
Yeah.
This is not in the best interest of the taxpayers.
Yeah, it's been a priority, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I mean, it's been a priority of mine since I became county auditor in 2019 to get the state to properly define the powers and authorities and expand those authorities of the Budget Commission. Most people don't realize that the Budget Commission exists and what its purposes are. And frankly, there's a lot of legal debate as to the authorities of the Budget Commission. And what we find around the state of Ohio is you have 88 counties managing their budget commissions half a dozen different ways. And so I believe it's important that the legislature step up, does their job, and explicitly defines the powers and the authorities of the Budget Commission to be able to provide oversight of any taxing authority within the county as it relates to the taxes they are asking for, collecting, and spending.
Thank you very much, Auditor Galloway.
Oh, thank you.